Hello, everybody. So let's address a stock that is still down today, and HIMS. HIMS is down 3% as I record this, because the FUD continues for HIMS, even though the FUD has stopped for a lot of the Bitcoin and AI names. HIMS continues to be under a FUD attack. There's two of them today, Novo fights and Macquarie and FDA fights. And of course, TrumpRX. So let's address both of those right now. So, at the end of the day, yesterday, HIMS dropped really hard in after hours because a journalist, well, first of all, during the day, we had Marty Macquarie who said, FDA will take action against companies who do mass marketing of copycat drugs, illegal, that are not FDA approved. And then you had a journalist who apparently said that this tweet was referring to HIMS. And so, of course, we won't know, right? They don't give you their source or anything like that. So we don't really know. Could be, maybe not. I'm not sure. Here's what I know is maybe HIMS wants to go to court. Maybe they want to do that. But let me tell you the reasons why Novo probably doesn't want to do it. Novo probably doesn't want to do it. So first of all, keep in mind, HIMS has a very advanced legal counsel. They are the biggest kahuna. They are the biggest target in compounding. So they have the best legal counsel. HIMS likely has a lot of information about how Novo operates, how Novo works, because a former Novo executive is a board member of HIMS, at HIMS. They're a board member. Board members, of course, advise the CEO. That board member, who's a former Novo executive, would have probably advised against it if they thought there was going to be a problem. Then, how is Novo connected actually to the US market? Novo is an international company. I think a lot of people are excited about Novo's initiatives in Europe, Novo's initiatives in India. But how are they really connected to the U.S. realities and the U.S. market? And for proof, this is me who's complaining about this, but for proof is their rapid response, their PR team issued a stark rebuttal and a stark response against him in British English. So that tells me, who's taking care of that in the U.S., right? How connected are they to the U.S. market? That's my big question mark. That's point number one. Point number two is, does HIMS want to go to court? And I think for HIMS, the reason why they launched, the oral compounded semaglutide, the reason why they launched that is because they are in a win-win situation. If Novo doesn't go to court, they get to sell their oral compounded semaglutide. They get to sell it. Presumably, they're going to sell tons of it. Right? It's only $49. So that's if they don't go to court. And if they go to court, well, there's two things to take into account. First of all, court takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. In my prior video, I said 3 to 6 years because there's going to be an appeal. They will appeal, right? HIMS will not just agree to the decision, no matter what if there is a negative outcome. So that's point number one. And then point number two, GLP-1 cells are pretty transitionary. In my view, all GLP-1 cells will likely greatly crash once retatrutide is approved by the FDA in late 2026. If you start looking a few quarters ahead, it's very likely that in the US, Lilly is going to own the entire market. Because already most people want tirzepatide. HIMS does not sell tirzepatide. But once retatrutide is approved, everybody will want retatrutide. So Lilly will not only, quote-unquote, kill whatever's left of semaglutide, and then tirzepatide will be cannibalized by Lilly's next-gen product. So I really think, GLP-1 conversation when it comes to HIMS, when it comes to any of these companies, is a very short-term conversation. It's like, how many hundreds of millions do you want to make in the next 5 to 6 months? To me, that's the conversations that we're on. And so from that standpoint, the money is made now. The money is to be made now because all opportunities will probably be gone in late 2026, and that's good because HIMS will have moved on to other things like labs, like cancer testing, like other sorts of peptides, like other types of products. So that's my point. And then let's talk about court. Let's talk about going to court. So it's possible that I want to go to court because there's a lot of things that need to be clarified. One of the important things that needs to be clarified is, can you patent a peptide? To me, that is the big question. Who is going to be regulating peptides? This is a very similar conversation as to tokenized cryptos or tokenized stocks. Should the SEC or should the CFTC regulate it? They are new. We don't know who should regulate. Peptides, as far as I'm concerned, most of them, including GLP-1s, are naturally occurring chains of amino acids. So are you allowed to modify them slightly in order to make them patentable and to forbid everybody to use them because they are naturally occurring chains of amino acids? Maybe peptides should be regulated in a very different manner, and maybe they should not be regulated by the FDA. Maybe they fall under the supplements category. I think this is a big question, and of course, peptides are less than 5 years old, are less than 5. Well, they're a little longer for some of them, but we've kind of seen them explode in the market for only about 5 years, and this is an open question, right? Because who's going to regulate peptide? I think a court it would be a good idea for a court to weigh on that. That's point number one. Of course, in the case of oral semaglutide, and I think that's great for Novo, they have their snack delivery system. It's patented. No issue with that. Novo, go for it. Hims did not copy Novo on the delivery system. They used a liposomal delivery system, which is a different delivery system, which is not patented by Novo. And so what do? They have oral compounded semaglutide. So if they just sold semaglutide in the same dose as Novo, that would be illegal. Hims is not doing that. They're compounding the semaglutide. And then they're making it oral. But they are not using Novo's patented system for delivery. When you have oral compounded semaglutide, the stomach has very strong enzymes and it will kill it, right? So it needs to come in a wrapper. Novo created a wrapper called the snack wrapper. And in that press release, it seems like Novo was assuming Hims copied the snack wrapper. Now, it came out that Hims is using a different delivery system. And now people are arguing whether Hims' delivery system is true or whether it's just a marketing gimmick. I have no reason to believe why it's not a marketing gimmick. Liposomal delivery systems, in my view, work just fine. And people will argue on minute details, right? The same is true for injector pens, by the way. Novo has a patented injector pen. Hims came up with a different one. Right? So you're allowed to create a substitute. And you're allowed to compound. And I think this is where a lot of the problem comes in. Compounding has been historically allowed by the FDA because compounding was always done at a small scale. Now, Hims' entire business model is personalization. Therefore, compounded medicines are personalized medicines. That's how you personalize. How do you personalize a drug? You compound it. Right? So Hims is compounding at a mass scale. So that means, and the more conservative folks will say, well, this is a gray zone because compounding was never meant to be done at a wide scale. But the thing is, Hims is doing it at a wide scale because it's using technology, it's using AI to compound one-to-one drugs, one person, one drug. To me, it's very obvious that the future is one person, one drug. Nobody needs exactly 500 milligrams or 1 gram of something. You need 755 grams of that. If that makes any sense, right? We're all different. So Hims is using AI to design the perfect drug with limited side effects, with limited interactions between different drugs. We're designing perfect drugs, one customer, one drug designed by AI, compounded. That's the Hims value prop. And then the big pharma is saying, well, that's a gray zone. And so, again, I think Hims wants to go to court. Because compounding laws, two things could happen if you go to court. So compounding laws, of course, could be upheld so compounding laws could be reduced. They could say, okay, you can't do it mass. And so if you do that, of course, that's a bad outcome for Hims. And it would be, kind of devastating if you did that. But The thing is that what if compounding laws were to be upheld by a court precedent? Well, if that were to be the case, then you would embolden an entire industry. Everybody would start compounding every single drug if there was a court precedent that started saying, oh yeah, if you want to copy a drug, just add a little bit of B12 and you're good, you can copy your drug. And so that's a major risk. And so, and of course, that major risk is heightened right now because the popular opinion right now is against companies charging an arm and a leg. A lot of the popular opinion, whether it's politicians left and right, citizens left and right, all agree that drugs are too expensive. Nobody. So if you were to go in a court of law, and popular opinion, regardless of where you go, popular opinion, everybody agrees that drugs are too expensive. You could have a judge who's emboldened to say, well, compounding is actually a very good thing for the people, and therefore we're going to uphold compounding laws, and then you create an enormous loophole where so many drugs can just be compounded and nobody ends up buying the non-compounded drug. I'm exaggerating, right? They will always sell the non-compounded drug, but it's a very, very narrow segment of the population who needs exactly the drug that is made by these pharma companies in the quantities provided. So, of course, these pharma companies need to innovate, but they're traditional. They're traditional pharma. They move slow. They have tons of employees, tons of researchers who move very, very slow. And so can they really innovate, right? It's the innovator's dilemma for them. They could compound their own drugs and launch one-to-one marketing of their own drugs. But they're likely not going to do it. So I think Hims is in a win-win situation here. I think if they don't go to court, Hims wins. If they go to court, Hims could lose. But imagine how much more Big Pharma would have to lose. Big Pharma would have to lose so much more. And of course, they would lose the United States, which is like kind of the last country who accepts to pay an absolute fortune for drugs. There's kind of the last country that does that. No other country does that. No other country accepts to pay the absolute fortune that the USA pays for drugs. So I think Hims wins popular opinion, and I think if you go to court, it's very likely that popular opinion is going to sway the decision of judges. Remember judges. Anyways, I don't want to get to that. It's not my field. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm okay with a binary. I'm okay with a risk. It's not even a binary risk. Keep in mind, GLP-1s are less than 25% of Hims' business. It's just the market who thinks Hims is all about GLP-1s. Okay, let's moving on and finishing up with the last piece of FUD. So the last piece of FUD, of course, is TrumpRX. This one is a non-event. It's not an event. For multiple reasons. First of all, TrumpRX does the same little marketing trick where it's all the price advertised. You can see people complaining about this. Oh, they say it's $199. Actually, the price goes up to $349. So what do you get here? Well, you get Hims. I guess Hims is 7 times cheaper. Okay. Hims is 7 times cheaper than this. Fine. Because that price, of course, is only for the first month, for the first 2 months, and then it goes up to a price very similar to what Lilly Direct had, for example, at one point. So I'm not impressed at all. And then, of course, this is a classic misunderstanding of a business model. TrumpRX gives you a coupon to pick it up at a pharmacy. That coupon, in many cases, is more expensive than the coupon you could get on GoodRx. And so I guess TrumpRX would be a bad competitor of GoodRx. And GoodRx has very small margins. I have it in my spreadsheet. It doesn't have the best GoodRx. I don't find it an interesting business. So that's it. And it doesn't solve, of course, the biggest problem, which is the doctors are not covered. So you need a prescription. So that means you stay in the system of needing a prescription and, $250 a visit, $250 a follow-up. The doctor wants a follow-up like once a year or twice a year because the doctor wants you to come back because they want to make their $250. So you get back into the usual ping pong. You get back into the usual rent-seeking that HIMSS has entirely eliminated. So I think TrumpRX is a non-event. It is the FUD is pointless about TrumpRX. TrumpRX has nothing against HIMSS or any other companies. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is not legal advice. This is not health advice. This is not advice of any kind. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.